Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates. With me today, I've got Julia Brammall. Julia, you've been on our Tim Talk before.
I have. Lucky me.
Yeah, and what we're going to do today is going to talk about stories. Before we get started, remind people where they can get hold of you.
Or just come and find me on social media if you want to. I'm at Julia Bramble everywhere. Or my email, julia@bramblebuzz.co.uk.
And you're active on LinkedIn, on Facebook,
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
You're Dr. Julia Bramble, actually, on.
I am.
Yeah,
I added that to my Twitter and haven't added it anywhere else. So that's a bit of a one-off.
Yeah, and right on as well.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about stories. Yes. And what I wanted to do is start from the scratch. So first and foremost, what is a story? Because Instagram has them.
Yes.
Facebook has just got them, and LinkedIn is getting them.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about what they are, and then we're going to talk about how companies could actually use them to sell some stuff.
Yeah, cool. Well, stories all came about because you may remember this platform called Snapchat. I'm sure you do.
I do, yeah.
And there will be people out there, I'm sure, that do, and people out there that don't. But Snapchat was a platform that came along. It's still there, and it was really marketed at the teenagers and the young 20s, because what it allowed you to do was post little snippets of content that then disappeared after 24 hours. And within that demographic, within that age group, it was an absolute hit because they loved the fact that they could post stuff that then disappeared.
So in terms of a story, what they were doing was like, this is us going out for the evening. So here, the first picture of this is us getting ready. This is what the next is us putting our shoes on. Now we're on the bus, and rather than having that on your timeline as 1, 2, 3, 4, it was one post, but lots of posts to that. That's
right. So they would be out there posting like tiny little pieces of content, either an image or a 15-second video. I can't remember, was it 10 seconds on Snapchat? Anyway, a very short video. And yes, they would just post a tiny little snippet of information, know that it would be there for their friends to watch for 24 hours, and then it would disappear.
So rather than having a trite, we're going out and getting drunk. So from a business perspective, it could be we're setting up a conference. Here we are, we're laying the badges out. The people are arriving is the next picture. We're then handing out the badges. We're then getting the room ready for the first speaker. Here's the first speaker. And rather than having that and filling up someone's timeline, and that's kind of not the right etiquette, you could put all those together and have that as one story.
You absolutely could. So your story is built up of all these little snippets as you go through your 24 hours. And as 24 hours comes up, then the first little snippet will be lost to the world forever. It won't, because it's archived on your phone. So your story is always current, and it's always made up of those little snippets. But the one difference between a story and your timeline as well is that, say on Facebook, if you set all your posts to public, then everyone can see them. On Snapchat, which Facebook tried to buy and then didn't, so they just nicked the technology and brought it into Instagram and Facebook themselves. On your story, your posts, your little snippets are only seen by people who are already following you, or on Snapchat, who are already your friends. So that was the reason why it really took off on that demographic. You could keep things very personal. And that's the thing that really distinguishes stories from your timeline posts out there, because they are like tiny little snippets. And because of this disappearing thing, and because of the history of how it all started off in the first place, sharing a story feels much more personal than actually like doing a blast out there on your timeline that the whole world could see.
And certainly one of the things that I found with Snapchat was it was very broadcast. Even though you could make comments, the comments were confidential, which is kind of okay, and you could use it in that way. But quite often, what you want is the comments to be public, because this is about a discussion and being social. And one of the things that I've liked about stories on Facebook is that you are getting that intimacy of actually people making comments of it. It's not necessarily I always found with Snapchat, you would just put, and you would send it out, and then quite often nothing would happen. Whereas with Facebook, you are getting people, and I'm finding certainly with stories, it's a far more informal. Even though you have an informality of Facebook, you then get like another level of informality as well. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the idea behind stories was just, well, for some people they are snories actually. Yes. That's another matter entirely. But the idea was just to take like little, images or video of your day as it was happening in the moment. So with Facebook, I think still, and especially on Instagram, in the newsfeed, in the timeline, we feel the need to present this kind of polished side of ourselves. On stories, very much it's almost expected that we're presenting the raw and real side to ourselves. So it is unedited. It is just what's happening in the minute, or what we're feeling in the minute, or whatever it is that we feel inclined to share. So you get this feeling of authenticity, to use that overused word, and as you said, this feeling of intimacy, and combine those two together. And of course, you've got the foundations for really going some and building relationships. And that's why businesses are doing well with stories. And that's where the excitement is building, because people are, as a whole, sort of starting to just get a bit bored of this whole, I'm going to broadcast my stuff on social media to the big wide world type of feeling. And actually, we're craving that connection and that feeling of intimacy with other people. And stories seems to be the vehicle that people are really enjoying jumping on and seeing, like the little snippets from everybody else's lives.
So I have a barber, which I know some people will amaze them. And this is an example. This is and she's called the Dandy Fox, and she's just down the road from me.
Love it.
And usually, what happens when you're posting stuff as a business is what she's been doing is posting pictures of gentlemen's hair that she's been cutting.
Yeah.
And she does sort of like designs and stuff.
Nice.
And so what she's been doing, rather than sort of just taking a photo and posting it on Instagram, what she does is that she'll take a photo, but she'll do it in color. She'll do it in black and white. She'll do it from the front. She'll do it from the back. And rather than that being, again, down in the timeline, it all goes along as one story. So you go along and go, oh, that guy's got an interesting haircut. He's got like a zigzag. And then, oh, yeah, it actually looks even better in black and white. And then and it shows the story. Lovely. And that's a different way of presenting. In effect, you're presenting the same material, but you're presenting it in a way, and stories provide people with an opportunity to kind of bend what they're doing at the moment and give a little bit more interest to, it's a bloke's haircut at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But she's got an awful lot of followers, and she was up for a Chamber of Commerce award, which for small barbers in London is big stuff.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But it's just an interesting way that big companies and small companies can use stories and just bend what we're doing away from the picture.
Yes, and it is and as you hit on there, it is thinking about what's going to grab people's interest. So I have seen people, this is a little bit of a rant of mine, but I have seen people like showing them walking along the street and showing them going into a coffee shop, or showing them like going to boil their kettle and make a cup of coffee. And I'm thinking, yeah, you've got my attention because I'm watching your story, but please, can I see something that is actually a little bit more interesting than making a cup of coffee? Unless, you're sharing this great philosophical thought at the same time as you're making your coffee. Please do give us that little sparkle of interest, and don't just think because we're watching your story that we're going to carry on watching. We can jump off, and we will jump off unless you keep giving us stuff to hook us in. And that idea of showing images from different viewpoints or with different filters on and stuff is a great way of keeping people interested.
Yeah, and I think we've had it on Instagram for a little while.
Yes.
We've got it on Facebook, and a lot of my clients say that Facebook is for friends and family, but Facebook has now become ever prevalent.
It has, and you can have stories for your page.
Yeah.
And you can have stories for your group. Stories are everywhere on Facebook, wherever you look. So you could have a friends and family type story, but you could also have stories on your page.
Yeah. So, you go to a concert and you might, and don't stream loads of stuff, because I know you're at the concert and you're interested, but people aren't interested in a 10-minute version of Freebird, or whatever. Whereas, there may be certain aspects of that. You're going backstage or something like that, and there's a meet and greet, and there may be parts that you can build up. But there must be certain things that are happening in business and I know that sometimes we can be sometimes we can joke about what people do, but actually I've seen some videos from some of our clients in North America, some of the manufacturing stuff, and you go, when they're making like these all-terrain vehicles and stuff, and you go, how do you do that? And it is actually, and they get loads of views, and it's actually really, really, because we don't know how this stuff is made, and quite often people kind of don't realize that they actually need to come out and actually talk about that stuff. I know they may think it's boring, but we actually, so for example, they did a video on how to weld aluminium, or aluminum as we say.
Yes.
And they did how to weld aluminium, because I'm told it's really difficult, and how not to weld it.
Right.
And the discussion that actually created from people that from and it was just amazing.
Wow. And that's the thing. If you're sharing stuff that hooks people in and that they love, then you've absolutely got it. You're away. And being able to, almost, stories gives you the freedom to do this, because it's saying you don't have to go out there and share your sort of markety, polished stuff. They're giving you permission almost to share those little pieces that maybe you wouldn't share anywhere else. So maybe it is the behind the scenes of your day, or maybe it is, the behind the scenes of your business. Maybe it's the chef prepping stuff ready for lunchtime service, or maybe it's the fresh fish that's just arrived from your supplier, or maybe it's your supplier actually talking to you about the journey that they've made, or the fact that something's been out of stock, so they've had to replace it with something else. Whatever it is, not only does it give us an inside view to your business, but as you've said, talking about the welding example, it actually shows sometimes why people might be asked to pay a premium for whatever it is that you're offering, because you're actually able to share the work and the skill that goes into what it is that you offer that might never have occurred to people before. So that's definitely one side of using it. Another side, of course, is that you can think about in your day-to-day what is going to make you appear even more credible to those people who might want to buy your products and services. So are you talking to a guru in your field, for example, me talking to you today? So I've just snapped a cheeky little photo so I can go share it on my stories. But all that is going to help to give you credibility. Or say somebody says something nice about you on social media, you wouldn't necessarily be snapping that and putting that out on your normal social media, but it would be perfectly acceptable to take a little photo on your camera and share it out in your stories and say, well, someone just said this about me that's totally made my day. So you're building up this picture of who you are, what you're about, what you're good at, a bit of behind the scenes, and then you can do this lovely relationship building as well, letting people see a little bit more of the real you that they wouldn't necessarily see out there on the socials.
And we talked about stories for maybe a conference. We're not saying that that's the only piece of content that you may actually do.
Absolutely.
You might want to do lots of things with a mix. So you may have that one story, but you still go ahead and do your normal interviews, or if you want to stream the speakers or whatever it is that you'll do, you would also build other things in there as well. That's the question.
Absolutely, you would. Yes, and whatever you're doing, say, like you say, you are doing interviews with the speakers and you're creating some lovely video content there, then great. But you can let us know in your stories that that's what you're doing. So you can build anticipation for when you release that video. Same if you're going to write a blog about the conference, you can use your stories, if you like, to tease the fact that this blog post is coming and let your people know what's going to be in it for them. Of course, don't just say, oh, I've got this amazing blog. Let them know actually what they're going to be getting from it. The same with any other type of marketing. But the other thing that you can do, and one thing that I do a lot at conferences, is to take like little snapshots in my stories. Say it's a 15-second video of a speaker, because very often you're not allowed to actually take more than 15 seconds video of a speaker. So it might be a 15-second video, it might be an image with a little quote that you've just scribbled down. They've said something amazing. Put it out as a segment of a story, but then of course you can reuse or repurpose that content. So you could take that one piece and share it on Twitter. You could square it up a little bit and put it out on Instagram. You can put it out on your Facebook. So don't think that this is asking you to add yet another stream of content into what might already be an overwhelming mix. Actually, you can use your stories and take the best bits out and repurpose them elsewhere. And it starts to kind of freshen up and give a bit more of an energetic vibe to some of the content that you might be sharing on your other channels as well.
So how, I mean, you know, in your view, we haven't got stories yet on LinkedIn, but what's your view about the future, about how this could work? Because LinkedIn is quite a different platform, isn't it? You know, you've got with Instagram, you expect photos. With Facebook, there is a, you know, we kind of haven't got a collar and tie on, and it's far more informal. Whereas LinkedIn is you know, quite formal in its and professionalism. How do you see that working?
You know, I think we're going to end up, when it does launch at the beginning anyway, with a sort of 2-tier LinkedIn. And I think you're going to get people that maybe are used to using stories or watching stories, at least on other platforms, jumping in and embracing it. And I think you're going to get a certain group of people on LinkedIn who don't like it when informality hits on LinkedIn, and they respond very negatively to it in public. I don't think they're going to go anywhere near stories for a bit, but I think they may have to go and investigate, because I think that stories are actually going to take off and be very popular over there. We've already seen the timeline and the newsfeed kind of loosen up a little bit over the last couple of years. So I do think that people are going to jump on and use them, but I do think that people are also still going to want to keep their professional edge about them, if you like. So stories out on Facebook or Instagram, you might see social media experts, for example, after a conference going out to a bar, and, you know, things start nicely and you've got a few cocktails, but after that it gets a little bit leery. I would suggest that maybe you wouldn't be sharing that on your LinkedIn story. You might share very well the fact you've gone to a cocktail bar and there are some amazing cocktails and like all these bubbles coming off them and stuff like that. But I think you would stop it there. I think there will be a little bit more of a boundary around stories, but it will still give us the opportunity to show that much more real side to us or our businesses that we wouldn't otherwise share on LinkedIn. Because the timeline on LinkedIn still feels very much like you can share a post, a link to a blog like yours or somebody else's. You can share like a viewpoint or a little discussion piece in a post. You can share somebody else's stuff, or you can let the world know that you've just been to a networking meeting. Yawn. But apart from that, it isn't much else. So I think it's really actually going to liven up the content that we see on LinkedIn if people start using it to share things in another dimension. If they're just taking the same old stuff and putting it out as a story, then it's not going to be interesting. So you are going to have to think about, as you said earlier, presenting your stuff slightly differently. Don't just take some of the templates that some of these image editing people are offering and take your normal stuff and put it into this template and share it out on a story, because that's not going to give anyone any reason to come and watch it. You want to be sharing something a little bit different. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to go out onto the news feed and maybe say that, say we have been to an event or to a conference, and if people want to come and see something in depth, come and follow your story on LinkedIn. And then you'll have that nice segue between maybe that one post that you might put into your news feed and the more in-depth pieces that people can come and find out about if they're interested. I think that could work well.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, we need to be breaking away from this sort of, what we're going to do is we're going to broadcast, because I know what's going to happen, especially this time of year. There'll be lots of award ceremonies, or here we are at the so-and-so Christmas party. You know, we just need a photo. You're there. That's it. We don't need to see lots of stuff, because to to be honest, we're not interested. But I've seen some great stuff on LinkedIn where, you know, someone walked home from a networking event, and it was on blockchain, and he said, I've learned these 3 things about blockchain, and this is, you know, this is going to revolutionize not just a bullshit conversation, but actually something that I actually learned this. You know, keep it short, you know, 1-2 minutes or whatever. But as long as people are doing, you know, the rules are usually, it's got to be insightful, it's got to be educational, it's got to be funny, but you need to be really careful because people have different senses of humor. Some people don't get irony. So you know, it is about still educating the audience, providing them with something at the end of whatever you're doing, that story. The person needs to go away and go, I learned something from that, or that, okay, I can take that back to my desk and use that sort of thing. Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do agree. Or maybe it will be a challenge to people to think differently. Maybe you've got a strong opinion about something, and you want to share it, or you've seen an article about something and you don't necessarily agree with it, but you don't want to go out and produce something about it, say on your blog. Then you could share it in your story. But I do like this idea of not necessarily sharing everything out on the newsfeed, but encouraging people, if you like, to actually come and watch it on your story. Because what you can do there, of course, is if you have got anything else that you want to talk about, say it is related to something you do in your business, or say you have just had a nice testimonial in, or say you have just been talking to a guru, you can kind of weave that in as well, so that you are, you know, you're sharing educational stuff, but there's a tiny weeny piece of positioning, if you like, in that story as well that might have been difficult to actually share out on the newsfeed.
Yeah, and I think it gives the salespeople and marketeers a level of flexibility from the standard picture or the standard video that we quite often get. And as we say, it's an ability to add time to those posts, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it's also going to give us, because what Instagram stories give us is they now give us some tools to actually encourage engagement, to encourage the direct message back, as you talked about. So if LinkedIn brings in the same sort of tools, then it could be a great way to actually start conversations thinking about salespeople, particularly because on Instagram, you've got polls, so you can get people to answer yes or no to a question. So you could then go back to those people, or they've actually got questions where you ask an open-ended question and encourage people to come back to you. So it is a fantastic way of actually starting those conversations. So, you know, who knows where they might lead? And of course, if you're an adept salesperson, you'll probably be very good at leading conversations a certain way. So you can start them here, but the other way around as well, that people sometimes forget, is that actually responding to other people's stories and starting a conversation is a great way to actually get in front of them, is a great way to get noticed by them. So if you are responding, being friendly, and maybe offering some value or an opinion yourself, again, you know, who knows where that could actually take you. So it's a brilliant tool for building those one-to-one relationships.
I think that's a really important point, Julia, which is it's not just about putting stuff out. It's also about going out there and commenting and liking stuff yourself.
Absolutely.
And spending the time. You know, I just before I came on, I actually read a blog from one of our clients in North America. A salesperson who's written a blog, and I've gone on there and said, this is, you know, she's actually written a really good piece. And this requires me to take my time out to like it and to say, this is a good blog.
Yes.
It costs me nothing. It's you know, it's the pleases and thank yous that we teach our children. It costs nothing, but actually this is the sort of stuff that makes the world go round.
It absolutely does. Even if you're just responding to someone and saying, hey, that's a great photo, or like, that sounds like an amazing talk that you gave, or whatever it is, you know, you do that enough times to someone, say it's an influencer who you'd really like to start building a relationship with, or whoever it is, and they start to get to know who you are.
How to build, you know, if I'm on social and I want to build my profile, I want to start from somewhere, that's a great place to start.
It absolutely is. And then they, you know, who knows, they might come back and take a look at your story and find out actually what you're about and what you offer. I mean, that could be the start of something really amazing.
And I've done Tim Talks where people have commented, and I've gone and looked at their stuff and go, yeah, you've got a really interesting profile. You've got a really interesting opinion. I'm going to get on and I'm going to interview you.
Absolutely. Wow.
And that's a way, you know, that and that's a great way for everybody to start. I know not everybody wants to be well known, but in terms of your profile, whether you're selling stuff or talking to clients or prospects, you know that. But anyway, Julia, it's been fantastic. We're at 25 minutes, so the time soon flies. So remind everybody where they can get hold of you.
Or come and find me at Julia Bramble on any of the socials, or julia@bramblebuzz.co.uk is my email.
Brilliant. Thank you, Julia. It's been fantastic talking to you. Have a fantastic Christmas with the family.
Thank you.
And I'll see you in the new year.
You will do. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Julia. Bye.
Bye.